been 7-point underdogs both games, and we beat Carolina and Dallas. We're 7-point underdogs to Carolina on the road, and hopefully we can get 3 on the road.
All right, a couple of the Saints' big-time weapons on offense reached some big-time team milestones last week. Aaron Brooks and Deuce McAllister both climbed into pretty hefty company. AB became the second player in team history to reach the 16,000-yard career passing plateau. He trails only Archie Manning in that department. Brooks also became the first-ever Saints quarterback to throw for at least 3,000 yards and fire up 20 TD passes in 4 consecutive years. And there's Deuce. McAllister banged his way into the team's history books as well, passing the 4,000-yard rushing mark for a career. He's 111 yards short of passing Dalton Hilliard for second place on the team's all-time list, and 66 yards short of becoming the first ever to rush for 1,000 yards in 3 straight seasons. So AB and Deuce McAllister, some pretty big milestones. As for Jim Haslett, at 4-8, all the national reports had him on the hot seat. He was going to be a guy who was going to be let go after the season because his team was expected to do a lot better. But at 7-8 right now, going into the last week with a playoff spot, I think he's done enough as a coach to turn this thing around, perhaps to give himself a longer life here in New Orleans.
I think he's done enough, but I think we all know that there's going to have to be some changes in the offseason. I mean, you look at this team, and I love to use a Denver game because Denver just came out and hammered this team. And you use that Denver game as a stepping stone. I think a lot of people looked at it as some changes have to be made, and everyone was looking at Haslett as the one to, to change. So I think they've done enough, but changes have to be made, and it also depends on what goes on in this Carolina game Sunday. If they come out against Carolina and just get blasted, I think then a lot of people still might call for Haslett.
Right back on the hot seat again.
Exactly.
Time for us to take our last break. When we return, we'll take a closer look at the Panthers and the problems they present for the Saints when Game Plan comes back.
It's time now to take a closer look at the rival Carolina Panthers and what problems they'll present for the Saints. The first thing everyone talks about when we talk about Carolina is hometown boy Jake Delhomme, but he's not the only one on this offense, Eric.
Not the only one. Nick Goings is like the 5th string running back. He's run for 700-plus yards on the year, has 5 of the last 6 weeks run for over 100 yards. And then at the wide receiver spot, Muhsin Muhammad, 87 catches, 1,300 yards, 14 touchdowns. He is definitely a big play man that Jake likes to throw it to.
Yeah, and then they have the rookie out of USC, Kerry Colbert.
Right.
And try that 3 times.
Right.
He's been a great addition to this team, presenting a lot of speed, a lot of downfield receiver that Jake can throw to.
And on defense, of course, they have guys in the right spots. Julius Peppers, of course, leading the team with 10 sacks. Will Witherspoon leads the team with 96 tackles. So they, like the Saints, have guys in spots that can really hurt you, especially if they get on a roll. It'll be very, very important for the Saints to establish something on the ground game. Charles Grant said it several weeks ago. He said, I hope it comes down to the last week where we're in Carolina fighting for a playoff spot. I think that'll be a great game. We'll see, Grant, you're going to get your chance this weekend in Charlotte at Ericsson Stadium.
I don't know if that's something that they want to wish for because Carolina, I'm telling you, they have played some very good football. I mean, Carolina is a very good team. Their defense is very good. Every time you talk to Coach Haslett about Julius Peppers, Michael Rucker, his eyes just light up, and he knows that these guys are going to present a battle for their offensive line. I mean, so I don't know if that's what Charles wants, facing this team. I mean, this is going to be a war Sunday. I mean, I think
they want. I think that's what any NFL team wants, and I think the Saints are confident enough now to show up, be focused, and play a solid football game. Of course, I've been wrong before. We could be wrong again. Let's hope. Cheer for those Saints. You remember that cheer we did earlier?
No, we're not going to do that. I'm not doing that again, man.
Come on.
It's time for us to say goodbye. Be sure to join us next Friday right here on Saints Game Plan.
See you later.
Today, 2 weeks ago, most football fans in this state probably thought that Les Miles was the name of a used car salesman in a James Bond movie. But today, most of them know that that's the name of the newest LSU football coach. Miles went out of his way today upon his introduction to praise the head coach that left LSU behind and to praise the facilities that Nick Saban left behind as well, especially the storied edifice named Tiger Stadium.
I was in awe, and there wasn't a person in the stands. And it's a majestic, grand venue. And I am told that the opponents have a very difficult time hearing the snap count. I think it's a wonderful advantage for the home folks.
Yesterday's victory by the Saints was the most satisfying in years, given how big the stakes were, given the fact that it was on the road, given the fact that they had lost 4 in a row to the Carolina Panthers and were 8-point underdogs to make it 5 in a row to Carolina and 4 in a row to Jake Delhomme. But all last week, the Saints insisted that they were going to win the game. It was more than idle boasting. It seemed to have come from a real confidence that the team had developed, that they were ready to play their best football. You can't always tell if a team is ready to play in the pregame locker room, but Jim Haslett said today that he had no doubt that his team was yesterday.
You could really feel it yesterday. Guys were into it. I mean, they were dancing around. I thought they were going to tire themselves. I thought we were going to tire before the game started. So I was kind of trying to settle them down. I mean, I've never seen anything like it in a while. I mean, just they were really into this game. That team was not going to beat us yesterday. There's no way.
First impressions may be lasting, but it's the last impressions of the season that frequently dictate what happens in the off-season. Yesterday, I thought back 5 years to the day when the Saints finished the 1999 season on January 2nd, 2000 against the Panthers in Carolina. The Saints were attempting to salvage a disappointing season and had upset the Dallas Cowboys the week before with Jake Delhomme as the starting quarterback. With Delhomme again at the helm, the Saints were clobbered by the Panthers in the season finale 45-13. Jake was intercepted 4 times while throwing a single touchdown. 3 days later, on Bloody Wednesday, Bill Q. Herrick and Mike Ditka are 2 of 22 Saints employees fired. I've long felt that if the Saints had won that season finale decisively, Tom Benson would have found enough encouragement in that finish to make few changes of that significance. Had the Saints won that game, maybe there never would be a Randy Mueller or a Jim Haslett in the Saints' future. And had there not been, there never would have been an Aaron Brooks or a Joe Horn or a Deuce McAllister in all likelihood. And for far longer, there would have been a Jake Delhomme and a Ricky Williams and a Kyle Turley. One single regular season victory in a losing season might have meant that much to the course of this franchise's future. 5 games ago, after the Saints fell to the Panthers 32-21 to drop to 4-8, you could have made a case for blowing up the entire organization. 4 victories later, after perhaps the most remarkable turnaround in a single Saints season, you could make a case for retaining everyone in the positions they currently occupy. Now, that probably will not and should not happen. But in 4 weeks, perception has swung about 180 degrees. Too often in the NFL, perception is mistaken for reality. It will be Tom Benson's job in the days ahead to tell the difference. And that figures to be a daunting and highly important task. It was an interesting season filled with a lot of ups and downs, but fortunately, it finished on a big, big up.
Good game, yeah.
It was. Thanks.
Well, if you didn't know...
Is the last word on sports. 4th down on 4.
The Saints fans keeping an eye on 3 early afternoon games, hoping for a Minnesota win over Washington, but they do not get it. Patrick Ramsey, the former Tulane Green Wave, to car product Robert Royal for the touchdown, and Washington wins 21-18. That's not good news for the Saints, but the Saints still had a chance to make the playoffs. All they need was a win over Carolina and some other help. First, they needed to get that W, and they do. Aaron Brooks to Joe Horn, 44 yards. Saints take it 21-18. So after that, all we needed was a St. Louis victory over the New York Jets, and the Saints are in the playoffs. But they don't get it. Remember Doug Bryan, former Saints kicker? Look at the field goal. This would give the Jets the win and the Saints a playoff bid in overtime. But it is not good, and St. Louis will march down the field, and their kicker, Jeff Wilkins, does send it between the uprights. St. Louis wins, knocking the Saints out of the playoffs. The final 32-29 Rams over the Jets. Jim Haslett says they're the hottest team in the NFC, but for the 4th straight year, the Saints will be watching the playoffs from home. Hello, everyone, and welcome to 4th Down on 4. I'm Lee Zurich. Some players said today they took care of business, but in reality, the Saints didn't. Yes, they won, but looking at the big picture, the Saints dug a huge hole starting the season 4-8, and they just couldn't get out of it. The Saints played their best game of the season today, showing what this team can do, but couldn't do over 16 games, finishing the season 8-8. You know, it's an old Saints saying, wait till next year, but as Jim Henderson reports, some players really can't wait till next year. Optimistic after a strong end to this season.
At approximately 4:54 Eastern Time, the Saints' 2004 season ended on a Jeff Wilkins 31-yard field goal in St. Louis.
You know, I think it came out outstanding. Nobody gave us a chance, and it's a shame we're not going any further, but hey, I think we got a hell of a ball club.
But if you look at the way it ended, the wait till next year was the shortest in Saints history.
It's already 2005. Ain't no next year. We start grinding right now, you know. So that's the big thing, man. It's a big stepping stone, man. I think a lot of guys gonna come back hungrier than ever.
Jim Haslett's face was drained of color, his voice was drained of emotion, but his heart was swollen with pride for what his team had done. Risen from the dead 4 weeks ago to become arguably the best team in the NFC not to make the playoffs.
It's a shame that we can't keep playing because, like I said, I think we are the hottest team in the league right here, at least in the NFC right now. So it's a shame, but they did a nice job and they stuck together, especially through all, you know, there was a lot of stuff going on this year and it wasn't pretty, and the guys just hung in there. It was the coaches and the players against the world.
Despite what they had done, the Saints took little solace in coming so close. Only one team in postseason will end it on a winning note. Could it possibly be better to end the season off this performance than, say, a first-round playoff blowout loss?
I really got beat badly in the first round and not go at all. You know, because that's what you play for.
The Saints became a team after their last loss of the season to these Panthers. They showed the team they became in winning for the first time in the last 5 games against them today.
We stuck together. We knew no one outside our locker room would believe in us to do anything. So we knew we had to win the last 4 games to have the opportunity to play in the playoffs. We believed in each other, and my hat's off to the guys in this locker room for winning the last 4 games just to have that opportunity when people counted us out.
It has pretty much told everybody, hey, you can either take 2 roads. You can take the high road, you can take the low road. We're all professionals here. We all get paid to do a job. And, I mean, I think at that time everybody just settled down and did what we had to do.
It was one of the Saints' proudest moments, followed closely thereafter by one of the saddest moments in Saints history. But if the future is not now, at least it's a whole lot closer than it ever looked to be 3/4 of the way through this past season. In Carolina, Jim Henderson, 4th down on 4.
Straight off the Saints plane, we're joined by WWL Radio's Kenny Wilkerson, and Kenny, quite an emotional afternoon. Such a high with the win, and then such a low after Jeff Wilkins kicked that field goal as you were watching in the locker room with the rest of the team.
Yeah, it was a while before they actually let us in the locker room. They were all in there watching it, and the coaches and everything. It took a while before Haslett, you know, he wasn't even going to talk to the media until until after it was decided. You know, until that game, the outcome was decided. So it was interesting. It was one of the strangest locker rooms to be in, because after maybe one of the biggest wins that they've had in a long, long time, it was, you know, it was like they had lost the game.
You know, Jim Haslett said, judge our team over 16 games. And I know we're excited about a 4-game winning streak, and we're excited about the future, as Jim said. But over 16 games, they were an average team in the NFC.
Yeah, well, when you look at the season total, the whole season, I mean, they failed. You have to give them a big fat F. Now, you know, a lot of times people fail and come back the next year to be on, you know, being in the honor roll. And I'm not saying that that's going to happen with this football team, but what they did do was remarkable in the final stretch here. And what Haslett did, I think that nobody, including myself, thought that he could fix what he fixed, and that is that he regained credibility and respect in that locker room. I mean, big time. It wasn't just a little bit here and a little bit there. When he got on him in Atlanta and then stayed on him about, hey, you're my guys, I went to war for you, I put my neck out on you, you're the ones I believe in, but you're not giving me what I bought, people started responding. And then I think he learned a big lesson this year about being a head coach, and that is you got to crack the whip. That's the way you have to be. And again, he fixed what I thought, what a lot of people thought was unfixable, and that is all the baloney with the football team. They became a football team.
And his players want him back, right? Yeah.
His players want him back. I mean, I had players coming up to me and talking to me after the game on the plane. Joe Horn's one of them, and even said, "You say I said this. You know, I want you to use it." We want Jim Haslett as our head coach.
Now, there's a big issue here that's going to be coming up this week. Some people know about it, some people don't. Is there a rift? Is there a problem between Mickey Loomis, general manager, and Jim Haslett, the head coach? And I know Jim Haslett has said some things that he was hurt by some of the things Mickey Loomis said this year, especially at the beginning of the season. And will there be any kind of power struggle coming up? You do?
Yeah, I do believe so, and I think that he's been nice about the way that he's put it. I'm talking about Jim Haslett for the last couple of weeks, and ever since the "something's missing" comment, as well as Mr. Benson and the high schoolers and all that kind of stuff, and even Mr. Benson in the piece just there saying nobody gave us a chance. Well, in a way, neither did he. And
when you say power struggle, though, what do you think is going to happen? What do you see happening now?
Well, I mean, even talking to Jim after the game and on the one-on-one interview that I did with him, and I mean, I said, "Do you want to be back here?" And he said, basically, and not quote, but he basically said, "Not with the way that things are." I mean, yes, he wants to coach these guys. He wants to coach this team, and I think he likes it here, and I know his family likes it here, and that's all been well documented, that his wife and the kids and everything, they like being here, but not under the way that things are structured right now. They need more football presence in the front office. It's as simple as that, and I think that he proved, and his coaching staff proved in this last month, that they know what they're doing. Now, there's things they have to learn. There's things they have to get better. There's holes on the football team. There's no question about that. But they do not want to have people who are not football people, if you will, telling them how to run things. And I think they proved that they know what they're doing.
But on the flip side, couldn't they say, well, they finally figured out how to use the talent that these so-called non-football guys?
Sure. I mean, there's plenty of ways that you can debate it back and forth for, in all different directions as to who's right and who's wrong, who knows what, who doesn't.
Who has the leverage here, though?
Well, that's the thing. I think that you got a coach with a pretty hefty contract. Yeah. Then I think that carries a little bit of weight, and that does carry a little bit of leverage, considering he did what he did. Now, if they hadn't won, then we're not even having this discussion. If they hadn't turned things around the way that they did and played the way that they did look today against Carolina. I mean, they went in all week with an attitude, we're going to win this game. And they went and they won the game.
So one more thing on this, Ty. What do you think Tom Benson is going to do? Because he is close with Mickey Loomis. Mickey Loomis was an usher in his wedding.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, I know that Mickey has said, he has said that it's going to be his decision on what to do. I think that that's the part that Haslett and his coaches and that they have a problem with, to be quite honest with you. I think they have a problem with that it's going to be his decision of what needs to be done and what's going to be done to fix things and to make this football team better.
Before we get a break quickly, Tom Benson will be in town some this week,
Tom Benson, I know it's been reported that Mr. Benson was going straight on to vacation and all that. It's my understanding that he left Charlotte tonight and went back to Florida. And he's coming back to New Orleans on Wednesday, and he's going to be around for a couple of days, and then he's going out on vacation. But he'll be here this week.
Alrighty, Kenny, it should be interesting this week as we see what happens with the Saints and the structure of their front office. WL Radio's Kenny Wilkerson here on 4th Down and 4, and before we start talking about the Saints a little more, I want you to hear some comments about Aaron Brooks, one by the commentators doing today's game, about what Aaron talked to them about earlier this weekend, and then also Aaron as he was coming off the field after today's win. Take a listen to this.
Aaron Brooks echoed what you just said. He told us yesterday it's a different environment down in New Orleans. It is not conducive to us becoming better players.
Laughing at them. Laughing at all y'all. Laughing at all y'all. Because if everyone down in St. Louis lose today, win the playoffs. What they think about that, fake experts?
You know, you hear that. You hear some of the things that Aaron Brooks told you earlier in the week. Does he want to be playing football in New Orleans, and are the Saints better off with him or without him?
Well, I think that the way things are and the way the season ended makes everybody feel a whole lot better about the situation, and I think he feels a lot better about the way things are and the way that players, they became more of a team and started becoming more professional, holding themselves more accountable and all that. You never know what you're getting out of Aaron. One week he's business, next week he's clowning around. One week he's business, next week he's like this week, coming out and being very bold and being very brash with a lot of his comments. There was a time earlier in the season where I was very convinced that he did not want to be here anymore. And he would even say, I just can't do it. I mean, even Jim Haslett says similar things like that. I just can't keep doing this the way that things are. But the way things have wrapped up, yeah, I think that there's reason to be able to, for him, to at least talk about things and figure things out. I mean, like when he said earlier in the season, I got to reevaluate my situation. I do know and do believe firmly that he feels, and a lot of offensive players feel, as though Aaron's hands are tied and they don't open it up and they don't utilize the weapons that they have as much as they would like to see. But then, you know, all players are going to be like that. You have to also look at the coaches and what they did this year and how they stuck with their game plans and stuck with their knowledge of the game and in certain situations, and it paid off for them. So, you know, players want to run the show, they can't.
The coaches are there calling the plays.
Exactly.
You know, before we go, we got about 30 or 45 seconds left. Changes in the off season. I know it's a broad topic, but what do you think needs to happen, or what should happen as far as, you know, maybe some positions in coaching staff?
Oh, I mean, you know, we could spend probably 3 weeks of doing the show every single Sunday night, going through
How much change needs to happen then?
From a personnel standpoint, not as much as I think that as we thought a month ago. Definitely across the offensive line, you've got to make some changes, and you've got to get maybe not necessarily so much changes, but people paying more attention to their bodies and being in a whole lot better shape.
As you can see them in uniforms.
Yeah, I think that's probably as much as anything. Linebacker, and that's an ongoing thing every year. I mean, there's things that they need to do, but again, I think that the fans and I think the media and the football team probably going to go into this offseason now in this offseason with more optimism than they've had in a long time.
Kenny, as always, thanks for coming
pleasure.
down. It should be an interesting offseason for the Saints.
Might be an interesting week.
It may be an interesting week. We will see, and we will definitely.
This is the last word on sports. 4th down on 4.
It's the one show that we regret bringing you, a Saints roundtable to wrap up the Saints season. I'm Juan Kincaid, and welcome to 4th Down on 4. Today's show, it's dedicated to the Saints and another season without playoff participation. Joining me to discuss the highs and lows of this season are Kenny Wilkerson, who for nearly 2 decades has covered the Saints for WWL Radio. He is the host of Sports Wrap on AM 690 WTIX. Nice to have Eric Asher back with us again, and he's an NFL draft analyst and a regular contributor to SaintsReport.com. Mr. Mike Detillier. I give you Mr. Mike Detillier. Welcome, guys, once again. Nice to have you back here. The big news this week.
Mister.
The big news this week is the Saints offering Jim Haslett an extension and his coaching staff an extension. We're going to throw up a graphic right now that really shows the resume of Jim Haslett. This is his 5th season. He has a .525 winning percentage, 42-38, second winningest coach in Saints history. And of course, he got him to that one and only playoff victory back in 2000. And you compare him to Bill Belichick, a guy that also coached 5 years in Cleveland, who really struggled. Does Jim Haslett deserve an extension, or should this team have just played out the remaining contract?
Well, I think you first ask yourself, and have to go back to a couple of years ago, did he and should he have gotten the extension then? Because had he not gotten that extension, he probably wouldn't even have been the coach after last year. But that's why he remained the coach, and that's how he remained the coach this entire season when things were bad. And credit to them that they stuck to their guns. They left him, you know, he and his staff kind of backed away from everybody, and they did their job, and they finished up strong. When he said last week after the game that things are going to have to be different, there's going to have to be changes, we now know what he was after and what he wants. He wants support from the organization and show the fans and show the organization, show the players that the front office and the ownership are behind this coaching staff and give them extensions, and that's what they did.
Mike?
I think the extension was basically a call out to the players on this team, and also a call out to potential players. I'm going to be here for a while. So if you have any interest in playing here, you know who you're going to play under, and that was Jim Haslett. The one thing is that's strange about this one is the fact that, you know, for 5 years, he's looked for a leader. You know, they brought in different players, Andrew Glover, Jake Reed, Brian Young. All those guys have done a nice job being a leader. Guess what they found at the end of the year? The leader was already on this club, and it turned out to be Jim Haslett. So the one thing it sends a signal out to, and a positive signal, is I'm going to be here, and that's going to tell the team currently something, but also out to potential guys who could really help this club in the offseason.
Eric?
In my opinion, they're going to have to make some changes within the coaching staff. And in order to bring someone in, you're going to have to be able to show that your coach has longevity, that he's not on a one-year window. In that case, they give him a 2-year extension. Maybe now he attracts a coordinator that might be worth his salt.
At the beginning of the year, media, fans, and you would think that Tom Benson was thinking that this is a make-or-break year, get into the playoffs and or else. But did those final 4 wins save Jim Haslett and his staff's job?
I think it saved it. I don't think there's any question about it.
Is that deservedly so, though?
Well, put it to you this way. I think most of us thought when this season started, they would be a 7-9, 8-18. They finished up that way. But it's the way they finished that saved, to me, saved this job. Eric brought up the fact about coaches worrying about longevity. Man, when you look across the league, though, how many of them have it? So in essence, I think the coaching part is one thing, but I do believe that that 4-game stretch showed you that he was really the leader of this team all along. It finally came out, and he finally laid the gavel down, and it showed up. But I do think those final 4 games, no doubt, saved this job.
And it's how they did it. They did it with a lot of young players. They didn't do it with the old guard. They brought a lot of young players in and were able to do that over the last 4 games. That was a different Saints team that last 4 games. That's why I think he deserved to come back. Extension, no, but come back, yes.
Kenny, I want to touch on one thing. We want to throw another graphic up talking about this team since 2002, and this division, really. Everyone has gone to the playoffs except for the Saints. Everyone except for the Falcons and the Saints, and we don't know about the Falcons yet in the playoffs this year, have gone to the Super Bowl. So having said that, it would seem that an extension wasn't really worthy for this administration and for this coaching staff because they haven't really done anything, whereas everyone else has.
Well, everybody's going to say the same thing which Mike and Eric are saying, and it's exactly true, that it's because of the way that they did it. What I've been told and what I've heard from most of the players and coaches that I've spoken with all week is that once Jim came around, and what they mean by that, what they're talking about, is once Jim became and was once again the leader. Mike's talking about leadership. Eric's talking about being, having extensions and having longevity so that you can get good people. You're not going to get anybody good to come play for you and/or coach with you if you're a lame duck coach and everybody knows it. Okay, that's number one. Number two, everybody wants leadership. All players want leadership, and they say it. They may sometimes say, oh, we're fine. We don't. That's all. Much too much is made of all that. That's not true. Everybody wants leadership. And Hazlitt, once he knocked it off, once he said, that's it, I'm tired of everybody. I'm tired of hearing about how I don't know what I'm doing and all that. He got a lot of phone calls from a lot of people around the NFL telling him, everybody knows that you know what you're doing, but you got to clamp it down. And he did. And the players, when players are coming to you and saying, we want this guy as our coach, that tells you a lot, and a lot of players are doing that.
And the bottom line is, since 2001, Saints one of only 7 teams not to make the playoffs. 3 years together for the Saints' big 3 on offense is the trio of Brooks, McAllister, and Horn, enough to take this team to the next level. Plus, there's no place to go but up as the Saints finish last in the league in total defense. What changes, if any, might we see this offseason? Fourth down on 4. Before we get into this segment, I want to go back to the beginning of the regular season before a ball had been snapped for real. This team came in with a lot of question marks, and the first one being, of course, can they win? And what we, the media, and the fans heard from the players then left all of us with hope.
Particularly the last 3 years, we've missed the playoff by 1 game. We've had some very tight, crucial games that we didn't come up with to be able to put us in that playoff, and I think that helped us in a way that we were mature, we've come together, have more continuity as a football team, and play together, understand, and we respect one another more because we also understand what each other can do, and it's up to us as players to push one another, and I think that's going to be the key for us getting where we need to be.
I guess the last 7 or 8 Super Bowl contenders or champions had subpar or horrible seasons the previous year, and you come out, you got the same guys, that continuity starts building, and then you get something special.
And I think, it's a feeling that comes upon the guys when they play this game. I feel like this is going to be one of the outstanding seasons that the New Orleans organization ever had.
Boy, we've heard all that talk before, haven't we, guys? Eric, this seems like a team that always had the right thing to say, win or lose this season, but the next week we would see more of the same garbage.
I would say things are very, very good when before the ball is snapped with this particular team, but they've been slow starters at times. They've ended bad. I mean, you don't know what you're going to get out of this team, and I think it was lack of leadership, in my opinion. Kenny talked about the fact that once Jim Hazlitt took hold of this team, this was a different team. Jim Hazlitt has to take hold of this team from the beginning this time, and not let this be an aberration, what we saw the last 4 games of the season.
Yeah, and he said last week in his final press conference, I asked him, I said, do you think you have a better feel of what to do and how to get these guys to fire away like they did in December? In September, he goes, yeah, I think, I believe him. I believe that he did learn some things as a head coach this year, and I think every year he's learned as a head coach, but they're very good at saying the proper things during training camp and before the season starts. They've always been very good at it, and they always will be very good at it. I think everybody in the locker room knew that there were problems, That's why within just a couple of weeks they started coming out and saying things like the fake love and fake camaraderie. People forget about all that. I mean, there was a lot of stuff said early on by a lot of people, and they knew that there was problems, and it wasn't until they all kind of started getting together amongst themselves, and Hazlitt getting in there in the Atlanta game, screaming and hollering at halftime, and then the next day in the meeting saying, "Okay, everybody raise your hand. If you don't want to get on board with us, that's fine. You can go. We'll help you get on. We'll find your way on out of here." And started calling everybody out in front of the whole football team at one time. And little things like that is what helped. But, I mean, every year they're always going to feel like things are good. And they're going to say the politically correct thing. They knew. I think a lot of us knew. I said it before the season, and they got all mad about that, saying, "Oh, no, everything's fine." When I said, no, I still believe they got problems in that locker room. Now, the thing is, are the problems gone? A lot of the problems are gone. They did come together very, very nicely as a team. And that, more than anything, had to do with why they finished 4-0 and why the glass is half full. If anybody wants to think it's half empty, that is wrong this year. The glass is half full, but it is half full. It's not full.
Yeah, we always talk about the quarterback. I'm going to skip subjects now to the quarterback, Mike. The quarterback gets a lot of the credit when they win, gets a lot of the blame when they lose. Aaron Brooks has already said this season he is a great quarterback. His numbers, as we throw them up for you now, really don't suggest that. Barely above 500 as a starting quarterback. 71 consecutive starts. He had, numbers-wise, he's been pretty good. 98 touchdowns, 61 interceptions. But, of course, the big stat we look at, the fumble problems. 51 fumbles, 20 of them lost since 2001. So, having said that, Aaron Brooks, is he the answer for this team, or is he the guy that brings up the most questions?
Well, he brings up the most questions because he is the most visible player on this team. But to be a great player, you got to do it on a consistent basis. And that's something that Aaron hasn't done. And you see the inconsistency, not from game to game. Sometimes it's from quarter to quarter, series to series. That's the thing that Aaron has to understand and what a great player is in this league. It's all about consistency. And he hasn't had that in this league. The most consistent thing he's done is been inconsistent. Well, he'll play great some games, other games not. Now, we'll say this. I'll give him some credit here. Cut him a little slack. The offensive line play this year was not very good, and he was playing with his top player, and Deuce McAllister, hurt for most part of this season. The biggest change, though, to be honest, is the defense came through for him. And that, to me, is what's missing. But it's missing the boat here in the fact that their defense actually helped set up a lot of those particular scores late in the season. They didn't have Mike McKenzie when the season started, and they got development from Grant, from Will Smith, from a Courtney Watson, from a James Allen, Fakir Brown. Those guys weren't there at the beginning of the year playing like they were at the end.
But we all agree that Aaron Brooks gets probably more of
because he plays
the criticism
quarterback position. I don't care where you are. Yeah. The quarterback's going to get the deal there. Drew Brees last year, who got more criticism in San Diego than him? All of a sudden, you saw a consistent Drew Brees lead him into the playoffs.
Eric, you feel the same way about Aaron Brooks. Probably gets a little too much criticism from the fans, from the media. Actually, he's a pretty good quarterback when he's on. Really inconsistent, always has the problems in some of the big games.
I agree with Mike. Nature of the position. Head coach, quarterback, they get the accolades if you win. They get the criticism if you lose. I think it's that way league-wide.
Eric, Kenny, what do you think about Joe Horn and Deuce McAllister, the years they have had? Of course, Joe's going back to the Pro Bowl again. Deuce McAllister, injured much of the season, gets 1,000 yards rushing for the third consecutive year. Without these two guys, this offense really, really struggles. And put the offensive line aside.
Yeah, well, if you have to even wonder, not you, but if anybody even wonders, and they even consider not doing anything with them and getting them some deals done with them, then they really totally have lost their mind. But I don't think that's going to be the case. They'll take care of Deuce and they'll take care of Joe, and I think they're going to do it and let them know they are taking care of them, because both these guys want big time to be also not just, they just don't want the money. They want everybody to know, they want to feel good about that the team is going to come to them and take care of them. If I could just say one little thing also about what these guys are talking about when it comes to Aaron Brooks. What Aaron did consistently at the end of the season is what he has to pick up doing when they start up again, and that is he did become more of a leader. Yes, he's always going to be inconsistent on the field, and he'll 10 in a row great, and then he throws one in the dirt. And Aaron started developing an attitude of, you know what, my best players drop the ball, my best players fumble, my best players miss blocks. I'm going to make mistakes too. And just like Hazlitt developed an attitude of, I don't care what anybody says anymore, Aaron develop the same attitude in that locker room of, I don't care what you guys, and if y'all want to get mad at me, then be mad at me. He started yelling and started becoming more of a leader than we've seen since they gave him the ball back in the 2000 season. And I'm talking about during the timeouts, I'm talking about in the huddle, I'm talking about in the locker room. So that's the biggest thing that Aaron has to continue with, having that attitude. If that's what it takes, having the attitude of not caring what anybody thinks, then fine, that he has to keep that. But again, if you know, when with the Deuce and Horn thing, the Joe Horn situation, they'll give them. They're going to get their deals.
Yeah, bottom line is we want this guy to win, and Aaron Brooks is a big reason why. Statistical production, that's one thing. What about the intangibles it takes to win? Does this city have too many distractions to house a successful franchise? Are the fans and media too negative towards the team? Of course not. We'll get the coach's thoughts when we return. Stay with us.
Coach year to year, and your players change from year to year. I think that you know, you take a lot of criticisms for guys, what things that go on. I mean, and rightfully so. Everyone picks the negative things out, especially the media. You know, they always find the negative. Like they wanted Jonathan Sullivan kicked for the longest time, but no one ever looks at the positive side. You know, they don't see the 7th round draft pick playing linebacker. They don't see the 2nd round draft pick playing linebacker. They don't see a 1st round pick with 7 sacks this year. They don't see a 5th round draft pick starting at fullback. No one ever mentions that stuff. They just mention the 1st round pick from the year before. It hasn't gone on the field long enough. You know, and I think you gotta. I'm sick of it. I'm sick of